I will turn this over to Joyce or Mayela, who's ever going to go first.
Hi, this is Joyce. I want to introduce our division administrator, Mayela Sosa. She has been in our office since 2016, I believe. Gosh, time goes fast. And anyway, she's going to give us an update on the Indiana division.
Thank you, Joyce. It's a pleasure to be here with you today for the 4th time. It's been 4 years, and you started inviting me, which I appreciate, during my first full year here at this MPO conference, so it's been 4 years now. I want to give a few updates from Federal Highways, share some of the successes over the last year. Are you seeing the screen?
Yes,
and me?
Broadcast.
Okay, for some reason it's like blinking. I'm not sure what's going on.
You can ignore that. It's because you have a different window focused.
Okay, so in terms of FHWA updates, I wanted to mention, first of all, a bit about our annual appropriations, where we are with that. I know that you have a speaker later today that's going to talk about the FAST Act and where we are with that. A little bit on EDC 6, division updates, and a couple words on our status and where we are in possibly returning to normal operations. So first of all, on the annual apportionments, as some of you probably heard and will hear more about later this afternoon, the House did pass a Continuing Appropriations Act for 2021 and other extensions. And it does 3 important things for us at Federal Highway. First of all, it extends our operations through December 11th. So it's a continuing resolution for funding. More importantly, maybe, is that it extends the FAST Act for 1 year. So it provides at least some certainty in terms of our authorization program for 1 year. And then thirdly, it transfers some money from the general funds, from the general fund to the Highway Trust Fund, which brings, kind of shores up the status of the Highway Trust Fund, which has been losing, I guess the balance has been going down over the years. So in terms of the apportionments for the year, again, because we have a year extension, the state, NDOT, or all the DOTs will see apportionments for the year, the full year, just as it was. And I believe this is based on the last year of the FAST Act, although don't quote me on that, because if you recall, the FAST Act included kind of a annual increase every year. I'm not sure on that detail, but in either case, the state and MPO should see a full year of apportionments in the same method calculations that were done under the FAST Act. The apportionment side allows us to issue 72 days worth of formula obligation, again at the FY20 rate. And so if, just to be sure, the act has not been passed, but we anticipate that it'll be passed by the Senate. In fact, I was looking earlier today to see if it had been passed by the Senate and on to the president, and I did not see it in the news. But we have until the 31st, so we have a couple more days before we need to see that enacted. With its inaction, as we anticipate will happen, we should be able to issue notices to provide, again, the apportionments and the obligation limitation for the 72 days of the continuing resolution in the early parts of October. Also, our financial management systems will be able to hopefully go back online in early October as well. In terms of the transfer from the general fund, the act included $13.6 billion in transfers from the general fund into the Highway Trust Fund. And this is broken down into 10.4 billion into the highway account and 3.2 billion into the mass transit account of the Highway Trust Fund. So that's a good amount, again, of infusion into the Highway Trust Fund, which will keep the Highway Trust Fund solvent, and it will allow us to operate in kind of the typical fashion through all of FY21. Some of you may remember in the past when the Highway Trust Fund balance goes low, pretty low over a certain threshold, we have to meter out the reimbursements. So you don't get reimbursed as quickly and by us, because we have to maintain a certain balance in the Highway Trust Fund. So again, that infusion of funds will allow us to operate as we usually do, and your reimbursements will be done timely. I want to take a minute to mention EDC 6. So the Everyday Counts initiative and the innovations for the 6th round of EDC, or Everyday Counts, was announced last week. And I wanted to mention this because it includes 7 innovations. And I think 2 of them, at least 2 of them, I think are really important for MPOs to consider and look into and possibly implement in your regions. I'll mention all of them. They include crowdsourcing to advance operations. I think, again, that's one where in MPO regions, looking at crowdsourcing techniques to improve your operations, I think is one for you all to consider. The others include e-ticketing and digital as-builts, more project related. Another one that I think would be of interest to you all is the virtual public involvement. That is something that certainly under our current conditions is I think very important and very relevant to think about how to employ or implement some of those virtual techniques for public involvement. The next generation traffic incident management is another innovation that I think, again, relates to operation of your system, and that may be of interest to the MPOs as you look to maximize the system's operation. Strategic workforce development is another initiative. Targeted overlay pavement solutions, and then the ultra high performance concrete for bridge preservation and repair. So I think, again, something for everyone, but at least 3 in my mind that I think are highly relevant to MPOs that you all may want to learn about and consider for your regions. So moving on to division updates, I want to share a few items. As you all recall, or maybe you've already known or have worked with Carrie Carmody George. Carrie is the newest member to our planning team. She joined Federal Highway in January. I had previously worked for NDOT, and we are happy to have her on our team. She has taken the lead on environmental documents in several districts statewide, and soon she'll be taking on some additional planning duties over the next year. She currently oversees the Terre Haute MPO and environmental documents for LaPorte, Fort Wayne, and Vincennes. Our other members that I know you all work with pretty routinely, and I don't believe their duties have changed over the last year, but they include Robert Dirks, who works with Crawfordsville and Greenfield and environmental documents in those districts. Erica Tate, also more recent addition to our team. She works in the Seymour and Vincennes district and environmental documents in Seymour. Joyce, who you all know, just was with me here a few minutes ago. She oversees the LaPorte and Fort Wayne districts, and she does not work on environmental documents. And as I introduced last year, Michelle Ellen continues to provide leadership and guidance to the team, and as a team leader for that team. So great team. I know you all work with them. I just wanted to go over those assignments and really just thank them for their work. This year has been particularly challenging, and I'll talk over a little bit about successes in a minute. And they've really talked about resilient, different take on resiliency, very resilient, and getting the job done and working with you all. So, which takes me to that return to normal operations. We have been in a maximum telework mode since March. And, you know, like many of us, or you all as well, we have adapted to this virtual environment. I am continuing to monitor kind of the situation regarding the pandemic, the numbers, especially in our 9-county region, because that's where we work and live, before we decide on kind of phasing back to the office, you know, our work office environment. So that'll continue on, you know, for the foreseeable future. I again monitor the data, and it really has been kind of a bumpy ride up and down. So until I feel like it's safe for us to start going into the office, we will continue in this status. But again, I feel like we have adapted very well, and we will continue to do what is required of us to keep the program going, keep the funds flowing, and continuing to work with you all on the things that we have done over the last year, or at least 6 months. Which takes me to our accomplishments, our successes over the last year. Again, the team has really adapted to working in a virtual environment. And let me see. One of the first really successes, and that we had never done before, kind of like this MPO conference, is conducting a virtual certification review. And that was done for the South Bend Elkhart MPO region. And Joyce and the team really came together to do all that was required to make that a successful review. I know the review report just went out, I think, last week. And again, it speaks to the adaptability and our ability to continue to get what we need to get done in this environment. We have been working with NDOT and the MPOs to implement and really incorporate some of these virtual components of public involvement into the public involvement procedures. Again, I think we had virtual involvement probably or some techniques in place prior to the pandemic, but I think the situation called for us to really deploy those in a larger fashion and as a critical component of public involvement. So I think it's a good opportunity to incorporate those into those procedures. Regarding transportation performance management, I want to congratulate all of you, NDOT, the MPOs, for meeting the safety targets. It really speaks to the collaboration among everyone, and that those first targets have really served as a great model for working together on all the future measures and respective targets that are coming up. So thank you to everyone for that. We're continuing to follow up on our current federal planning finding. One of the big kind of efforts was working with everyone to update the PERCOM, which is the kind of overall planning procedures that I'm sure you all are very familiar with. We consider this to be a very vital control document that guides the stewardship and oversight responsibilities that we have and that NDOT has, that really guide the MPO as well. So that was something that I know the team has worked really hard on over the last several months, and I understand that update is nearing completion. So that is a huge and critical success for us, really, an accomplishment. Another item that we would have worked with NDOT on is coordinating the incorporation of capacity adding projects into the TMA congestion management processes. And I know that us Federal Highway staff have presented information on the requirements to NDOT's technical services directors on how this process works and the coordination that's required, so that really the bottom line is so that NDOT's, again, added capacity projects are considered properly and with sufficient time in the congestion management processes. So I know that's something that staff has been working on. Other kind of training related efforts that staff has hosted is training on tip amendments, and I understand that NDOT was appreciative of that training. We coordinated with the Resource Center to provide training also to NDOT on the design and on bikeway facilities to the design and project managers over at NDOT. And then, as Tim mentioned, we facilitated that virtual workshop that speaks to safety and planning. So I understand that was also very well received, and we hope to continue to work with everyone on some of these training efforts. So looking a little bit towards the future, we hope to continue to work with everyone again on the transportation performance measures and the related processes to ensure that we meet future performance targets, or if not, take corrective action as needed in that regard. NDOT and the MPOs are going to start developing, or maybe you've already initiated the development of a new step and tips. And so we are ready as a resource to help you in that process. And we want to be ready to issue our federal planning finding on that new step by no later than July of 2021. I want to note that one of our audit findings from the Office of the Inspector General has kind of called on us to do a more robust job on issuing our planning findings. Sorry about that. And so for that reason, we're going to maybe put a little more emphasis on that planning finding, and we will continue to work with you to make sure that we do that on a timely basis. Like I mentioned earlier, working with you on the public involvement procedures, on updates that are needed to those procedures, incorporating some of the virtual involvement techniques. We'll continue to do that. We want to monitor the Federal Exchange pilot program that NDOT and the Indianapolis MPO is looking to implement. I understand they've reached agreement on how to do that. And the first year projects that will have that exchange, I understand, will be in 2025. It's still a little bit away, but I think it's good to start planning what those projects will be that will have that exchange of federal funds for state funds. So we'll watch that process and see and work with you all, the other MPOs, to see if you all are interested in something like that, see if it's a benefit to other MPOs. We have a few certification reviews that are due next year. Review for Evansville, Fort Wayne, and the Cincinnati regions. So we will be working on those with you all in those regions. We will keep working with you all on completing that update to the PERCOM, and then looking for other ways, opportunities to enhance the manual along the way. And then lastly, you all may be aware that there are new CEQ, Council of Environmental Quality regulations, which really have stricter timeframes for making NEPA decisions, and it also sets page limits for NEPA documents. So we anticipate getting more guidance in the near future on these regulations, but we foresee a need to do more in planning, maybe through planning and environmental linkages. So maybe thinking about how to meet those new regulation requirements in terms of timeframes and streamline documents by doing more through the planning process and the PEL process. And then lastly, I guess I'll just say generally, we want to continue to be a resource to you all. And for example, I know that the team has suggested perhaps implementing quarterly brown bag lunch training sessions, and we want to pursue those with you if those are of interest to you, because again, we want to continue to be a partner to everyone in DOT, the MPOs, look for those learning opportunities and ways to better communicate and collaborate with you all on the many planning and environmental issues that that we deal with. So with that, I'm actually done, and I will welcome any questions from anyone.
So at this time, we only had one comment. James Turnwald said the certification review team did a great job! Exclamation point.
Yeah, I understand that they did, and again, I wasn't there, but I know that it was a great team effort, and I did get feedback that it went really well. So thank you, James.